Before we get started, I want to say sorry about the game audio being so loud in the first part. I tried to adjust it to a lower level, but it seemed to do jack shit, so hopefully you can hear it alright. Hey guys, Dead Ant here, and today we have got another video game gun rant. Last time we looked at Call of Duty Cold War, so it seems fitting that today we look at Battlefield. And we're going to go with Battlefield 1, the World War I based Battlefield game. Now to start off with, we're going to take a look at the Gallipoli campaign. Gallipoli is very near to us Australians, so let's see how they did with it. Alright, now straight off the back, what the fuck are these sites? Like, these did not exist. They are incredibly high, these would be so fragile. Now I know what they based them off. They based them off the Galilean sites, which the Australians did use in Gallipoli. But they were very different to this. They were much lower profile, it was attached to the front sight and the rear sight, and it wasn't an extra attachment like these are. This is a terrible design. They should have just gone with what was historically accurate. So I understand, like, you're in the multiplayer mode, having different attachments and making things more interesting. You know, that's part of it.
Let's go.
But when you're doing a historical campaign, I don't know why they add all the historically inaccurate attachments. It just doesn't make sense to me. So let's get us a real one. There we go, that's much better. Of course they do change the sights a little bit because in video games they like to have you actually be able to see a bit better from the sights. These aren't what the sights actually look like, they are a bit different. But all video games do that these days. Okay, this is a bit odd as well. We've got a trench shotgun in Gallipoli. Honestly, I don't think these were used in Gallipoli at all. It's just the Americans are well known for using them in the trenches in Europe, but even then it was a very limited thing. It wasn't a common. Everyone had trench shotguns. And here's another one that doesn't make sense. Just to piss off a Turkish guy. C96 carbine. These were not there either. Whether these were used by anyone in the war it'd be slim to none. A full C96 carbine, yeah, it's why they adding this into the campaign. It doesn't make sense. Maybe they had the standard C96 Mauser. You know, some of the Ottomans had them as a sidearm. Definitely not as a main rifle. Poor old mate here just got. We got a Pedersen device. In Gallipoli. A Pedersen device. This makes zero sense. An experimental Springfield semi-auto pistol attachment. These were not in Gallipoli at all. These were, I don't even know if they were used in anything. They were made, and they were very, very rare. But in Gallipoli, these were definitely not used. And again, having these in the multiplayer is fine. Like, the multiplayer isn't meant to be realistic, it's meant to be fun. But when you're doing a campaign, this is the story mode. This is where you can show someone what World War I is really about. It's a really good chance to do something different there. But they didn't. They decided to go run and gun, semi-autos everywhere. It's insane. So let's pick up Dead. So this is a little bit weird as well. So we've got the Maxim gun, which is on a anti-aircraft pedestal being used as a defensive position. It is very, very weird. These would be mounted on a tripod for this sort of stuff, and the layout doesn't really make sense either. And then they've also got them on the wheeled carriage mounts, and they're in positions that are like they're expecting to lose the trench and they're wanting to shoot within the trench. And that is a very strange setup. It is only useful if your trenches are overrun. It is of no use to you at all to actually defend prior to being overrun. So it's very weird to have this in this sort of location. And look, a Turk with a shotgun standing there doing nothing. See, that is why you don't have anti-aircraft mounts like that. It is completely exposed, not covered at all. Easy to pick off. Look, there's another one. Why are they using anti-aircraft mounts to defend their trenches? Why? Why? Okay, we've looked at the historical inaccuracies in the campaign long enough. Let's go to just the actual handling and feel of the guns that they did put in it. So we're going to start out with the MP18. The theoretical first submachine gun ever used in combat. It was only in the very late stages of the war that they used it, and it was in very limited cases. It wasn't every second soldier running around with one. It was really, really late to the game. But there are still some that survive and that are being, built and tested, and so we have an idea of what they're like in real life. So let's see how this handles. I would say that maybe a little bit too high a fire rate, but it's pretty bloody close. Everything else is pretty good. Whether you would be holding it where he's holding it is debatable. I've seen sometimes that causes malfunctions in it, but each individual one would be different. So maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. And of course the rear sight is completely wrong. They've just done that so you can actually see what you're shooting at. It's a video game thing, like I said before. But overall, it feels pretty good. Alright, now we are taking a look at the Lewis gun. This one is an amazing gun, both in-game and in real life. The Lewis gun was something different. One of the first true light machine guns that was portable. It really is something. Now, straight off the bat, can you notice anything that is wrong with this picture? I'll give you a hint. Look at the rear sight. Those numbers refer to how many 100 meters you're aiming at. So the rear sight is set to, depending on what it is, about 1500 meters. So 1500 meters is the aiming point for this sight. That means that you're going to be shooting way high at close targets. Like, I would not be shooting where I'm aiming there. This would be hitting way up the top. The sight should be right down the bottom at the 0 range, like 100 meters, because that's kind of what you're using it for. There's nothing in this game where you're going to be using it at 1600 meters. So that is, attention to detail, a bit wrong. But how it handles though? I mean, that's basically Lewis gun. I mean, it'd be a lot harder to keep it on target, if you're standing and firing from the shoulder, it is a big heavy gun. So shoulder firing is not something that's going to be easy like this. You'd be struggling to hold it up for very long. But going prone, yeah, that is good. The reload is okay. So you kind of typically have to jiggle it on rather than just giving it a smack. If you smack it and it's not in the right position, it's just going to make things worse. So this hit isn't ideal, but overall it is well done. I just wish that sight was set to the right zero. Alright, and the last gun I'm going to look at for today is the Martini Henry 5.77-450. This thing is a beast of a gun. It is really cool. It shoots a huge caliber round, but it isn't like a big nitro round or anything like that. It is a black powder round, so it's fairly slow moving for what it is. But it is a big bullet that's coming out. I will say that, again, the rear sight is wrong. It's going to be like that for everything. The rear sight is always going to be wrong in Battlefield games. Recoil and shooting it is pretty good, pretty accurate. The reloading is all done well. That is how you reload it. But the sound is just not quite right. It's a very metallic sound in both ejecting and loading it, which naturally you think, oh yeah, that's right. But it kind of has an interesting sound in real life. And the real life sound is even more satisfying, to be honest. But you can't really fault them too much. That's a very, very, very minor detail. Other than that, it does shoot and feel pretty awesome. And this one does have a chrome skin on it, so they weren't this shiny. This isn't standard. This is just something that I've got added onto it for some reason, even though I preferred real blue guns. But yeah, it's a cool gun. So, as you can tell, my main gripes with Battlefield 1 are the historical inaccuracies and the sights. They have some really weird sights that they put on the guns. Even though there's real historical versions available, they decided to go a completely fantasy version. And also, in the campaign, the lack of historical accuracy really bothers me. They really had a chance to show what World War One was really like. And instead, they went for an arcade shooter where, you know, the Turkish had shotguns and C96 carbines, and the Australians had Pedersen device M1903 Springfields, and it just doesn't make sense. I don't know why they went that way. They really should have kept the campaign 100% historically accurate and left all the bizarre, weird things for the multiplayer. And in the multiplayer, I've just shown you like the real stuff that was actually used. I didn't bother looking at the things that were experimental, not really used, because to be honest, most of the guns in Battlefield 1 weren't really used in World War 1. They're just, it's plausible that they may have been used somewhere, or they're an experimental thing and they're going to be, you know, right on the cusp of the war, but they weren't actually used, and if they were, it was like a very small troop trial. Definitely not a mass issue, and you wouldn't be seeing every single soldier running around with those guns. World War One was a bolt action war, and to be honest, melee and grenades. Grenades and clubs were used a lot. Now, my guy has a sickle, which probably wasn't used, but you know, it's not impossible. But there would be guys that would be armed with just as many grenades as they can have around their body, and maybe a club, and that's what they'd go into a trench with. They'd sneak up close, throw grenades, keep on throwing them, and then charge in with their club. That was a lot of what World War I was about. And it's pretty terrifying that, you know, that wasn't really that long ago when you think about the history. But anyway guys, thank you very much for watching. As always, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'll see you all next time.